Well, good afternoon, good morning, depending upon what time of day you're listening to this curtain raiser interview. My name is Jeremy Martin, Vice President for Energy and Sustainability at the Institute of the Americas. And this is our first curtain raiser interview as we head toward the fourth edition of the Madrid Energy Conference set for April 18th through 20th, of course, in Madrid, Spain. We're very pleased to have with us today Rosilena Lindo, who's the Deputy Secretary of Energy in the government of Panama. Rosilena, Deputy Secretary, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of what Panama is doing to transform its energy matrix for the last three and a half years with you.
That's a perfect setup to our conversation today. And it's probably worth mentioning that last year at the Madrid Energy Conference, we had the participation of the Secretary of Energy, Jorge Rivera's staff, who joined us remotely, but delivered an update on energy transition and the goals and objectives of the government of Panama at that edition of the Madrid Energy Conference. We were trying to get Rosilena to join us in Madrid, but schedules are complicated. But we will get into some of the key issues that she would have shared with us when she joined us. Let's start with something that is at the center of all of our conversations, frankly, but certainly at the context of the Madrid Energy Conference, and that is regarding net zero, climate, the climate imperative, and the global climate discourse. And I think it's great that we're doing our first curtain raiser interview with somebody from Panama, because Panama has indeed attained a very important place in the global climate discourse with the news of becoming a carbon negative country. Now, there's a whole range of aspects of that, and I know that you're at the Secretary of Energy. So let's talk about, from your perspective in the government at the Secretariat of Energy, what this notable achievement means, but also how it can be sustained. So with that, would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Jeremy. And first of all, even though that I'm in Panama, my heart is in Madrid. Okay. And for us, carbon negative countries are those that the carbon mitigation efforts have led them to removing or sequestering more carbon that they emit. And therefore, a carbon negative country are those that are actively helping to reverse the global warming and climate change. And Panama is one of them. Since 2017, Panama is absorbing around 16,000 gigagrams of CO2 per year. However, in that same year, the energy sector has been responsible for emitting around 11,000 gigagrams of CO2 per year. And in Panama also, we are very convinced that if we want to have a habitable planet, if we want to enjoy water, oceans, forests, soil, flora and fauna, we depend also greatly on accelerating the changes in the energy sector, harmonizing the creation of just and inclusive conditions to allow sustainable economic growth. And for this reason, the development of the Panamanian Energy Transition Agenda began its construction in the 2019 through an active dialogue process with the private and public sector, supported by United Nations, using as a cornerstone the SDGs and the 4D concept: digitalization, decarbonization, democratization, and decentralization. Mm-hmm. And this process ended with the National Energy Transition approved, where non-conventional renewable energy, electromobility, distributed generation, energy efficiency, universal access to energy, and the modernization of the electricity transmission and distribution infrastructure, including for sure the role of green hydrogen and the digitalization, are the stars of this transition. And the potential to reduce at least 64 million tons of CO2 accumulated by 2050 are the triggers that move the implementation of the energy transition, that have 8 national strategies with 2 transversal roadmaps to assure that it's going to be made in a just and equitable manner, related mainly to gender equity and strategic communication for that. And when we think about the numbers of the energy transition, with the implementation of this opportunity to have a tool to assure that, we include that the total impact of the energy transition in our NDC. We provide specific numbers for the emission reduction target. We are expecting to reduce at least 11.5% of the emissions from the energy sector in 2030 and 24% of the emissions from the sector in 2050. But also it's important to recognize that we are moving forward very fast. And during 22 and 21, Panama's power generation was around 80 renewable in the interconnected grid system. And last year, between May and October, we had above 90% of renewable participation in the electricity matrix, but also within those months, 3 months, we were above 97% of renewable generation. In addition, as well, in 2021, we increased the role of renewables in the total energy matrix, not electricity matrix, energy matrix, in 33.7% compared to 2019. But also the distribution generation grew by 56% from the 2019 to 2023. But also, we see how fast is moving the finance sector to provide support for the implementation of these strategies. Last year, as an example, we have our first finance product to install solar panels into the market by a national bank. And also the National Tourist Authority have carried out a tender to have installed the first complete electric vehicles route in Panama, in Central America, and that will be 100% covered by electric vehicles. The growth of the electric vehicles in general in Panama has also grown. As an example, last year we sold more electric vehicles than for the last 7 years in total, and right now we have installed already 164 public chargers nationwide, where 23 of them are for fast charging. So the energy transition agenda promotes a fundamental change in the way that we are looking at the participation of the energy sector, and we are ready for that.
I must say congratulations. That is an enormous amount of progress. Like you said, extremely fast-paced progress. So congratulations. You know, it's absolutely a laudable a series of achievements. I think you got into where I'd like to take this conversation next, because within the transition, and you talked about the inclusive elements in the democratization and in the aspects of that we could call citizen participation. But let's talk about balancing access, affordability, and sustainability, because these are some of the key parts if we want to continue not only the fast pace, but to have a truly inclusive, and I'm sure in Panama you aspire to have a truly inclusive energy transition, right? So how do you manage these questions, particularly in the last year or so with all the uncertainty and volatility of affordability and ensuring energy security and access and sustainability?
Yeah, the basis for the success of any public policy in the short, medium, and long term is to focus on understanding and contextualizing the evolving needs and expectations of the people over time. So Panama is driving this inclusive and equitable transition, bringing everybody in, not leaving no one behind, but including also the role of innovation, the huge investments and long-term vision. Also, the cross-sectoral coordination is key, training is key, promotion of consumer and behavioral change is key, and to share not only knowledge but information, and moreover, facilitating the willingness and robust commitment of any stakeholder. And to achieve that, we are having in the top of our mind young people. Therefore, for the last 2 years, We have been implementing a leadership program on sustainable energy that we call SDG 7 Academy for energy professionals between the ages of 20 and 30 years old, with the support of 19 energy transition professionals that are the teachers that we call godmothers and godfathers of the
Okay.
SDG 7 Academy. And in these 3 months, they have the opportunity to become real leaders of change, receiving classes about how to broaden their technology knowledge, but also how to assure that they have the skills to communicate appropriately and the skills to evaluate policy conditions, including also having in mind how is built the policy and the regulation, and how you include sustainability on that, how you include the gender approach, the social approach, and how you change the way of transforming our natural resources and energy for sure, but including an ecological dimension associated with the different crises that the world is living right now. And for us, it's very, very, very key to assure that they know the impact of their actions and how the energy transition agenda is highlighting the role of women in the process. So for that, we also start the creation of a Women and Energy Nexus roadmap that really highlights the possibilities that the disruption of technology brings to the table, how we envision the more than 15,000 new jobs that the energy transition is creating for 2024, and the more than 140,000 employment that is going to be provided in 2050, and achieve those numbers in parity. So in March 2021, we started the construction of this roadmap, but focusing on the process, not in the result, on the process, but because the process is what it matters here. We involve public companies, institutions, and civil society, all related with the energy sector supply chain. But to start, we needed to know what was the situation about gender in the sector. So we started a diagnosis, the first one in its type for the Panamanian sector, and we identified so many biases within the companies, within the individuals, but actually within the people that was also working in the national, in our institution, in the National Energy Secretariat. So before starting that, we did a capacity building process and analysis process of our biases in order to clear our minds. And then we start to make different awareness creation programs, and also workshops with the people involved in the energy sector before defining what we wanted to do, because we had to be honest with us and clarify our understanding about gender, and then decide what to do. In that process, we sensitized more than 1,700 representatives from the private and public sector, and finalized the diagnosis. And we found some interesting results. As an example, because we found a lot, but as an example, 1 of every 4 women that start working in the energy sector don't continue with the capacity building process. Men, usually 3 of the 4 continue with a capacity building process. The gap in salary was also high, but for me, what was amazing to discover is where people, men and women, want to strengthen their capacities to internalize the opportunities of the energy transition. And maybe you will be surprised, but most of the women want to have more information on how to create new buildings and new business regarding energy efficiency. We thought that maybe in generation, but no, women in Panama, mainly also from the hydrocarbon sector, want to be part of the energy transition, but changing the way we consume electricity. So having that in mind, we start our discussion tables, and there we have the participation simultaneously on writing the roadmap with more than 310 participants. And the process took around 6 months, and we did it virtually at the beginning, but we wanted and we were missing to have the voices of the people that were living without access to electricity, without access to energy, to be part of the process.
Sure.
So we went there, and it was nice to see how the voices of rural communities and how the voices of indigenous people were also raised and included in the gender roadmap that we defined for the energy transition. And it's happy to tell you, just for closing that part, is that right now the roadmap was already done, and from the 32 lines of actions, at least 18 are under implementation right now.
It's fantastic. I mean, there's so many parts of that I'd like to keep talking about. And I should also mention, I believe as part of the whole process in the development of the process, that my colleague here, a non-resident fellow, Leonardo Beltran, was involved in the Consejo, I believe, right? So
exactly. Yes, we have a National Energy Transition Commission, what that is composed by 9 official institutions and 8 representatives from the private sector. But also for that National Energy Transition Commission, we create a panel of experts that come from different parts of the world. There are 2 Panamanians and 5 international professionals that want to cooperate. And that is also our way to include the seniors in the energy transition, in the Panamanian energy transition. But also every single national strategy that we have for electromobility, for green hydrogen, for the distributed generation, for innovation, and also for universal access to energy, have a special committee, interinstitutional committee, with the participation of the private sector. And I have to recognize that the most successful one so far has been the committee related to the implementation of the electromobility strategy. We have more than 160 professionals working with us, more than 60 companies working with us, supporting the implementation of those goals.
I'm not surprised. I mean, you talked earlier about the achievements, and you made clear to emphasize not just electricity, but the overall energy matrix, which of course, a key issue in so much of Latin America, particularly Central America and Panama, is the role of transport fuels, right? And trying to really decarbonize. And so I'm both, glad to hear, but not surprised about the level of interest and support of electromobility. Let me end, and the future energy leaders and the gender diversity. By the way, we're recording this only a couple days after International Women's Day. I know that was a very important day for you as a female energy professional. And the Madrid Energy Conference has made a commitment and objective to reach gender equality with our panelists. We're working, striving to hit that goal. As you know, Deputy Secretary, it's more attainable, but still challenging, right? And so we'll keep working. And we're also very pleased. The Institute is based here at the University of California, San Diego. We have a group of graduate students that we're going to be bringing and having join us, future energy leaders. So everything you talked about, from diversity with regards to women, rural communities, equity, and of course, future energy leaders. It's so wonderful. We've got to wrap up, but I want to ask about hydrogen, because you mentioned it. One of the committee areas, it's one of the focal points, and Panama has such a unique location. So it's not just that Panama has a green hydrogen strategy, like most countries across the world and region, but Panama has the canal and has this amazing this resource that is the canal and can play a role in so many facets of green hydrogen. So can you share some thoughts on that in terms of your strategy, the role of the canal? How does this all connect?
Yes, for sure. We envision Panama's green hydrogen transformative hub as a regional green hydrogen valley where Panama's geographical position, our Panama Canal infrastructure, maritime, logistic, communication, and financial and air hubs will add a value for the development of a regional and global trade market where green hydrogen production meets the more effective way the green hydrogen demand. And we seek to consolidate us as the regional hub of the hubs. And to do so, last year we launched the Green Hydrogen and Derivatives Roadmap. Now we have officially finished our Green Hydrogen and Derivative National Strategy in order to become an enabler of the creation of a supply and demand decarbonization for the trade of goods and services in the maritime, aviation, and land transport sectors. And that strategy has the objective to facilitate the use of green hydrogen and derivatives in the maritime and air transport, but also we want to offer green hydrogen, green ammonia, methanol as well from Panama to the world, and not only to produce our own green hydrogen, but also we want to import the green hydrogen derivative from the region in order to accomplish our goal to provide green bunkering services, starting from 2030. The main goal will be to at least, and this is a number that I'm giving you the number one message right now, because we haven't launched that yet in Panama, but we want to provide at least in 2030, the 5% of the total bunkering fuel that we provide will be green. And for 2040, at least the 30% of the total fuel for bunkering will be green. And also for 2050, the 40% for the maritime sector. For the aviation sector, we are expecting that for 2040, at least the 20%, and for 2050, at least the 30%, and not only including e-kerosene, but also the other sustainable aviation fuels. But one of the things that excite me the most is, as you know, the energy geopolitics is changing, and it's changing very fast. And we want to position Panama and the Latin American countries in that arena. And for that, we are going to be launching before the end of 2024 an organization that is going to be called ITO, because will be a milestone, and that means the Hydrogen International Trade Organization, through an international treaty to coordinate the development of the global green hydrogen market and its derivatives regarding prices, regarding certifications, standards, but also if we want to be just and inclusive, we want to assure that the people that are producing this new clean vector are going to be organized enough to assure that the other countries that won't be producing it also have access to it to accomplish the goals of the Paris Agreement. But the strategy also have a production goal for Panama in 2040. I will leave that for the announce that is going to be doing Dr. Rivera's staff. But we have national goals to produce and to import. And we also are adapting the regulation to provide the same incentive that the renewable energies are having to have also all the industry of green hydrogen and the derivatives, to have it produced here, but also that includes the same incentive for the infrastructure. And also, as parallel to the launch of the green hydrogen strategy, we are providing also as well a draft of green hydrogen law to be approved in the Congress very, very, very soon, with the creation as well of the green hydrogen free zones. As we have the fossil fuel free zones, we will also have a specific zone for the import and export of this clean fuel as well, including a part that is very important for us, that is the capacity building for the people in the sector. We are providing this year at least 100 scholarships for the professionals of the energy sector in Panama that want to be part of this new market.
I congratulate you on that as well. And, you know, you mentioned the role of sustainable aviation fuels. You mentioned sort of and I had focused in sort of my comments about the canal, but of course, Panama is a hub for air travel as well. And so all of this comes together, and I think I'm super interested in sharing this interview, and it's the perfect curtain raiser, because indeed, as we talk with the event in Madrid, so much of the idea is the role of Latin America in this kind of, you know, green revolution and the industrialization strategy, and how much can Latin America be a global supplier, whether it's sustainable aviation fuels, green hydrogen, derivatives. And there's no doubt, hearing from you today, that Panama will continue to be a major, major player in that domestic production, but also transshipment, the role of decarbonizing the maritime sector. Panama's bunkering is going to be continued to be a key role. Ito, I'm fascinated. I can't wait to share that with folks in Madrid. The hydrogen, say it again, that's Ito is Spanish for milestone, but what is Ito? Hydrogen International Treaty Organization?
Trade organization, yeah.
All right, so is that a Latin American focus?
No, it's a global focus. But we have to recognize that the majority of the renewable resources are in Latin America, also in Africa. So we see an opportunity here to shift the energy geopolitics of the world. And we want to be a partner with the other colleagues. We want to take this opportunity to change the way the negotiations are have been done in the past. We want to take the lesson learned from the fossil fuel sector. We want to take into consideration the lessons learned in OPEC as well. And, you know, future seems bright.
Well, it's the new geopolitics. I mean, some people call it the geopolitics of renewables, the new geopolitics of energy. I mean, I think some of the original geopolitics, particularly as we saw with natural gas and Russian supplies of oil and gas.
I just want to assure that I'm not undermining the challenges of doing so, but I think that the results during the process at the end will be more than we can account so far.
Well, this has been fantastic, so inspirational. I commend you and everyone at the government, but the whole segment of the energy sector in Panama. I know it's a very, very diverse sector with private participation across government, as you mentioned, all of these transversal committees across government and industry, civil society. Congratulations, best wishes. Thank you for this extremely uplifting curtain raiser interview. It has set forward so many points that we can continue to talk about, not just the Madrid Energy Conference, but all of the other discussions we have. Thank you again. It's been a pleasure to host you, Deputy Secretary Rosilena Lindo. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks to you as well, and a warm hug from Panama.
Thank you.